answered to almighty death. Oh, death, I have triumphed over thee within. O death, not for my heart's sweet poignancy, nor for my happy body's bliss alone. I have claimed from thee the living Satyavan, but for his work and mine, our sacred charge. Our lives are God's messengers beneath the stars, to dwell under death's shadow. They have come, tempting God's light to earth for the ignorant race.
Good morning. So we're reading in Book 10, the book of the double Twilight, and we've come to Canto 3, the debate of love and death. Savitri and death have already been debating for a couple of cantos. In the last canto was predominated by death's arguments. It was titled The Gospel of Death and Vanity of the Ideal. And although there were some counter-arguments by Savitri, much of the canto was focused on death's arguments that all in this world is ephemeral, that it arises out of nothingness. Even matter arises out of the void. And everything returns to that nihil or nothingness is the truth of our existence. It's at the base of everything, surrounds everything, and is the final goal of everything. In this canto, especially now at the beginning, we have a long 13-page argument by Savitri, in which she's replying to death's arguments about the origin and goal of existence being in nothingness. So here we get a long description of, we could say, Sri Aurobindo's view of our life and existence. And as we'll see, evolution plays an important part of that argument. That this world is unfolding over time, and it's an unfinished creation. That, yes, there are limitations, there are defects in the world that we see, but this is an unfinished product, and it's something in the making, and that it's leading towards a divine life. So, in the towards the end of what we were reading last time, so we're coming towards the bottom of the page on 621. So I'll just read the last portion of what we read last time, and then we'll continue from there. She says, "O death, thou speakest truth, but truth that slays. I answer to thee with the truth that saves. A traveler, new discovering himself, one made of matter's world his starting point. He made of nothingness his living room, and night a process of the eternal light, and death a spur towards immortality." So that's where we left off last time. And I think we begin on this side. Anandi?
A traveler, yeah?
So God wrapped his head,
What?
page 621,
Yeah, I know.
7 lines up from the bottom.
God wrapped his head from sight in matter's cowl. All knowledge seemed a huge darkness.
No, you missed something.
25, they told me.
Yeah, you started okay, just you
Okay.
skipped a line.
All knowledge seemed a huge dark nescience. Infinite war, a boundless zero's form. His abysms of bliss became insensible deeps. Eternity, a blank spiritual vast, annulling an original nullity. The timeless took its ground in emptiness and drew the figure of a universe that the spirit might adventure into time and rest with adamant necessity, and the soul pursue a cosmic pilgrimage. Spirit moved in blank immensities and build a thought in ancient nothingness. A soul was lit in God's tremendous void, a secret laboring glow of nascent fire. In Nihil's gulf, his mighty puissance raft, she swung her formless motion into shapes, made enter matter the body of the bodiless. Infant and dim, the eternal might awoke. In inner matter breathes a slumbering life. In a subconscious life, mind lay asleep. In waking life, in stretch, in its giant limbs, to shake from it is the torpor of its drowse. A senseless substance quiver into sense. The wordless heart commenced to beat in eyes to see. In the crowded dumb vibration of a brain, thought fumbled in a ring to find itself, discovered speech and fed the newborn word that bridged with spans of light the world's ignorance.
Thank you. Let's pause. So it's interesting how Savitri's reply follows nicely her earlier comment that came just before this passage. O death, thou speakest truth, but truth that slays. I answer to thee with the truth that saves. Because she accepts some of death's argument that this world arises out of nothingness. But from her point of view, she says, one made of matter's world, his starting point. He made of nothingness his living room, and night a process of the eternal light, and death a spur towards immortality. So she reverses, in a sense, the significance of what death was saying accepting the argument that it seems to begin from nothingness, but she's suggesting that the divine has created this field of nothingness in which to live, in which to evolve and manifest all his possibilities. She says, God wrapped his head from sight in matter's cowl. A cowl is a hood, but particularly the hood of a monk's robe. His consciousness dived into inconscient depths. So again, his consciousness was there in the beginning, but he dived into this inconscient nothingness in which to create his world. Infinity wore a boundless zero's form. So again, this infinity is behind this nothingness, putting it forth as its form. And his eternity became a blank spiritual vast. And then there's this enigmatic line, annulling and original nullity. So it suggests that this zero beginning point was annulled, and the timeless took its ground in emptiness. So that's how I take it. Could take it the other way, perhaps, but it seems that so this original nothingness was reduced to nothingness because something arose within it. The timeless took its ground in emptiness and drew the figure of a universe. Out of this nothingness, a universe arose, that the spirit might adventure into time and wrestle with adamant necessity. Adamant is something very hard, a substance like diamond. So the spirit was wrestling with this very hard substance of matter. And the soul pursue a cosmic pilgrimage. So in this field of the material universe, the soul is on a long pilgrimage towards God, a long journey. A spirit moved in black immensities and built a thought in ancient nothingness. So again, within this nothingness, thought, some idea arose. A soul was lit in God's tremendous void. A secret laboring glow of nascent fire nascent is emerging. In nihil's gulf his mighty puissance wrought. She swung her formless motion into shapes. At first there was just this movement of energy, but this gradually became form, shape, material bodies, made matter the body of the bodiless. Infant and dim the eternal mights awoke. So there is this eternal, infinite force behind, at work in this universe, but as it arises, as this force arises, it's still inconscient, still working without awareness, blindly, creating form, creating life. In inert matter breathed the slumbering life, a kind of a sleeping early life, early forms of life. In a subconscious life, mind lay asleep. The early forms of life did not yet have mind. It was as if asleep. Maybe working, but working as if asleep. Yes? Yes. The divine made matter the body of the bodiless. At first there was no form in this original void. And then there was energy, no material bodies, no forms. But this force at work, this divine, which hid itself in this void, arose, formed out of this energy, matter, and then life, subconscious life. And then in waking life, this mind stretched its giant limbs to shake from it the torpor of its drowse. So it's as if mind gradually is waking up, shaking off this dullness of the sleep, coming into its own conscious waking self, a senseless substance quivered into sense. The world's heart commenced to beat, its eyes to see. In the crowded, dumb vibrations of a brain, thought fumbled in a ring to find itself. So mind begins searching, trying to understand what it is, who it is. But it's all very much limited, surrounded by ignorance. Discovered speech and fed the newborn word, that bridged with spans of light the world's ignorance. Suggests kind of a deep significance of speech and the word. It's a kind of formulation of knowledge, of awareness. So it begins using this instrument of speech, of the word, to understand the world around it. In small, limited units of thought and idea, words, sentences. So we continue. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's what I was kind of beginning with, that she accepts much of Death's argument, because he was arguing all arises out of nothingness, and to nothingness returns. Well, she accepts that this world is arising out of nothingness, but she turns that argument on its head by saying that the divine infinite being has hidden himself in that nothingness in order to create within it his world, his manifestation, his expression in space and time. So it assumes a very different significance. It's not that this nothingness is the absolute beginning and there is nothing else, that this nothingness was created by the divine as a form, as a place in which he could paint himself in form. So she's accepting. That's why she's saying, you speak truth, but it's a truth which only leads to death, to nothingness. You say all of this is futile. There's no meaning, and it's all an illusion. But she's saying, no, actually, it's the divine taking form over time. So this evolutionary perspective is crucial to her argument.
But she also points to the fact that death is actually helping immortality to come.
Yeah.
Because him the spur of immortality.
Right.
So he's part of this movement.
Yeah, that's an important point. That death also is a part of the process of this development, this evolution out of matter, out of material forms, which are perishing, into an immortal life. That death is a stage in that process. Yeah. It's a spur, like we spur a horse on the sides in order to get it to move, to run. So we are also spurred into action, into growth by this kind of looming realization that we will end. Our lives are short. We have only a limited time here to accomplish whatever we will. So it's one of the great spurs, I think, one of the great incentives for us to develop, to grow, to create what we can. Okay, let's continue.
In waking mind, the thinker built his house. A reasoning animal willed and planned and sought. He stood erect among his brute compeers. He built life new, measured the universe, opposed his fate and wrestled with unseen powers, conquered and used the laws that rule the world, and hoped to ride the heavens and reach the stars. A master of his huge environment. Now through mind's windows stares the demigod, hidden behind the curtains of man's soul. He has seen the unknown, looked on truth's veilless face. A ray has touched him from the eternal sun. Motionless, voiceless in foreseeing depths, he stands awake in supernature's light and sees the glory of arisen wings and sees the vast descending might of God.
Thank you. Let's pause. So we see just in a sentence the development, evolution of mind, beginning with this reasoning animal which willed and planned and sought and stood erect among his brute compeers. This is the early form of humanity arising out of the ape. He built life new, measured the universe, opposed his fate, and wrestled with unseen powers. He opposed his fate. He tries to create his life, to extend his life. He's wrestling with the laws that limit him, trying to understand. Yeah, we're also still there. He conquered and used the laws that rule the world and hoped to ride the heavens and reach the stars. a master of his huge environment. So we're still working on that. And then in the next sentence, it's quite interesting that Sri Aurobindo seems to foresee, prophesize the coming of a divine humanity, and even is suggesting that it is already here. Perhaps he's pointing to himself or the Mother or to other spiritual beings that live. Now through mind's windows stares the demigod, the half-human, half-divine being, hidden behind the curtains of man's soul. So he puts this in past sense. He has seen the unknown, looked on truth's veilless face. A ray has touched him from the eternal sun. Motionless, voiceless in foreseeing depths, he stands awake in supernature's light and sees a glory of arisen wings and sees the vast descending might of God. So it's as if a being arising out of humanity is able now to stand in supernature's light, in the divine light of knowledge and awareness. And from that perspective is able to see a glory of arisen wings. Perhaps this ascending flight of humanity towards the divine, towards the demigod, and sees the vast descending might of God, and sees the divine force coming down to transform humanity. So we'll continue.
O death, thou look'st on an unfinished world, assailed by thee and of its road unsure, peopled by imperfect minds and ignorant lives, and sayest, God is not, and all is vain. How shall a child already be a man? Because he is infant, shall he never grow? Because he is ignorant, shall he never learn? In a small fragile seed a great tree lurks. In a tiny gene a thinking being is shut. A little element in a little sperm, it grows and is a conqueror and a sage. Then wilt thou spew out death, God's mystic truth, deny the occult spiritual miracle? Still wilt thou say there is no spirit, no God? A mute material nature wakes and sees. She has invented speech, unveiled a will. Something there waits beyond towards which she strives. Something surrounds her into which she grows. To uncover the spirit, to change back into God, to exceed herself is her transcendent task.
Thank you. So death had been denigrating this life in which we live and saying that all is arising from his material base and based on instinct, and there's nothing divine here, nothing great, no ideal can be formed in this ephemeral life in this world. And Savitri here answers that argument, saying that you look upon this world, but it's unfinished. It's still in the process of development, of growth. And when we look around, we see great things emerging out of the smallest particles, out of the gene, out of the sperm. A great conqueror and a sage arises. So just because things are now appear limited, defective, ephemeral, it doesn't mean that it has to remain like that forever. That can be the starting point of a divine world. So when you look at that, at how material forms arise out of atoms, out of the movement of energy, when you see how thinking beings emerge out of the brute animal, and when you see the demigod, the spiritual beings arising out of mankind, how can you deny the possibility that something great, this ideal, cannot be formed here in this world? She says, a mute material nature wakes and sees. She has invented speech, unveiled a will. So out of this material nature already we see these great creations of mind and life, of will, striving towards something greater, towards the ideals of a divine life. She says, something there waits beyond, towards which she strives. Something surrounds her, into which she grows. To uncover the spirit, to change back into God, to exceed herself, is her transcendent task. So here she gives the whole significance, the purpose and meaning of our existence here. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I would say it's just transcendent of what it is. Something beyond whatever exists now. Perhaps we could say to right. Right. So that's the kind of a limited form. Whatever to exceed oneself is to transcend what one is. But when you're changing into God, then that is also the transcendent being who transcends even this world and has created it as a field for his self-expression.
But the insight is to see that there are not two things.
Uh-huh. What do you mean?
There's not the transcendent and the thing
Oh.
that are separate. It is continuous reality.
So we'll continue.
In God concealed, the world began to be, tardily travels towards manifest God. Our imperfection towards perfection toils. The body is a chrysalis of a soul. The infinite holds the finite in its arms. Time travels towards revealed eternity. A miracle structure of the eternal mage, matter its mystery hides from its own eyes. A scripture written out in cryptic signs, an occult document of the all-wonderful art. All here bears witness to his secret might. In all we feel his presence and his power. A blaze of his sovereign glory is the sun. A glory is the gold and glimmering moon. A glory is his dream of purple sky. A march of his greatness are the wheeling stars. His laughter of beauty breaks out in green trees. His moments of beauty triumphs in a flower. A blue sea's chant, the rivulet's wandering voice, are murmurs falling from the Eternal's harp. This world is God fulfilled in its outwardness.
Thank you. Let's pause. So again, Sri Aurobindo is laying out the significance of our life and existence in this world. In God concealed, the world began to be. So as the world begins, God is immanent within it, but hidden, concealed. Tardily, slowly, it travels towards manifest God. So gradually, in the course of evolution, it's moving towards a true and fuller expression of the divine. Our imperfection towards perfection toils. Yes, we're limited, we have defects, but we're working towards a greater perfection. We're always moving towards a greater organization of our being, of our life, mending those imperfections that we have. The body is the chrysalis of a soul. Yeah, a chrysalis is like a cocoon, this outer shell of an insect that is developing into the butterfly, you could say.
This is the butterfly metaphor.
Yeah. And this next line is also very sweet, I would say. The infinite holds the finite in its arms. So our limited world, our limited lives are as if held in the arms of the divine. Everywhere we're surrounded by the infinite, by the divine. And he's overseeing, overlooking this growth over time. Excuse me? What will be revealed? Oh. So in the next line, what?
Eternity.
Oh. Yeah, this revealed eternity is perhaps kind of a different. There's the eternity of time, and then there's a kind of a timeless eternity that we can experience even in time, that we can enter into a state in which we perceive infinity, eternity. Because there's something standing outside of time, and we're connected to that. Even though in time we're connected somehow in our soul to that timeless reality. And gradually, over the course of evolution, that experience will come into our possession.
We also take it as planned, like whatever we have planned already, and that is the reality.
Yeah.
And there was what is larger, which has been bigger plan in mind. Time is traveling towards that.
Yeah, if we can look at it as time as kind of this process of evolution that's occurring over time. But at the culmination of that process of evolution, we enter into the timeless, into eternity, into oneness with God, we could say.
But the understanding always is this is not in the future. It's just in the now.
Well, that's the idea, I think, of this. Yeah.
That's what he will say later because they put it into nature.
So yes, we can experience that timeless eternity even now, even in time. Yes, but what B is suggesting is we don't have to wait for the evolution of the world to finish before we get to have that experience of the eternal. We can have it even now.
Here it doesn't mean that. It just means that in becoming the God is growing and becoming
Right. Okay. So then he uses another metaphor. This world is like a scripture written out in cryptic signs, in signs that are kind of difficult to read, that are maybe symbolic, that carry hidden meanings. An occult document of the all-wonderful's art. So this world is like this occult, secret document. It's a form that has hidden significances that we have to learn to read and see. Well, he's helping us. Yeah, a mage is a magician. So this is the eternal magician, the divine magician, who creates this magic of this world, which holds within it, within all its limitations, within its material forms, the infinite. Matter holds within it a mystery, and it hides that mystery from its own eyes. I mean, its unconsciousness hides it, but also maybe our self-deceptions hide it. So then he turns to another explanation of how everything around us, if we look with kind of more conscious perceptions, we see everywhere around us this magic of the divine being. All here bears witness to his secret might. In all, we feel his presence and his power. When we look around at the world, when we look at the blaze of his sovereign glory in the sun, a glory is the gold and glimmering moon. A glory is his dream of purple sky. All these beautiful, magnificent creations this universe in which we live, its vast extensions over millions, billions of galaxies. How incredible it all is. And this we can see, we can look at and just marvel at this creation, or look deep into matter and see of what it's composed, its infinitesimal little particles, little movements, vibrations of energy. Everywhere we look, we find this infinity. Hmm.
Always it goes back to that metaphor, and then when you have the dawn and the dusk every day, you get the goal, and you get it all. This process happening always.
So, yes, Sri Aurobindo is utilizing those things as symbols, as metaphors, but perhaps also they, in their physical reality, are kind of symbols or metaphors of these deeper significances and realities.
Yes, and it relates back to all these secret documents and all the occult stuff.
Right.
It's all locked into those symbols also.
Right.
So there's a continuous line here of evolution of all of this, right down to the flower. Of course, the mother is the flower.
But he's looking at the world around, and we see all these wonderful, beautiful aspects of nature. And we can see that it's not just some kind of random, kind of creation, that there is this tremendous beauty and order and magnificence in these things. Yes, everywhere the divine is present. And that's why it is the way it is, so magnificent.
But I think for nature, the problem for people is they don't understand the consistency. The sun does come up every morning. Everything is on schedule, including our lives.
And so this plan, this evolution is directed. And so our problem is the agreement to it.
Now in the moment, how much the weather is changing, the rain is coming in, a lot of the water comes on the land and not on the ocean.
So just like these beautiful material bodies that we see in nature, the flowers, the stars, the moon, the sun, also these processes of evolution, of life, are also divine and express, in a way, divine truth. They're consciously willed processes that the divine has using to manifest himself.
And how can we say, to equate the laughter of beauty with green leaves in trees? You see, how many people have that insight?
No, we aren't sure.
Okay, let's continue. No, we go up here. Let's go to up here. Would you like to read? So his ways challenge?
Yeah, I've got it. His ways challenge our reason and our sense. By blind, brute movements of an ignorant force, by means we slight as small, obscure, or base. A greatness founded upon little things, he has built a world in the unknowing void. His forms he has massed from infinitesimal dust. His marvels are built from insignificant things. If mind is crippled, life untaught and crude, if brutal masks are there and evil acts, they are incidents of his vast and varied plot, his great and dangerous dramas needed steps. He makes with these and all his passion play, a play and yet no play, but the deep scheme of a transcendent wisdom, finding ways to meet her Lord in the shadow and the night. Above her is the vigil of the stars, watched by a solitary infinitude. She embodies in dumb matter the divine. In symbol minds and lives, the absolute, a miracle, the absolute.
Pause.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sri Aurobindo explains that when we look at the world, it is mysterious, it's difficult to understand the processes that are going on. And if we didn't have Sri Aurobindo, maybe we would also have difficulty in understanding that the divine could work in such a way that he could manifest himself out of this obscure, inconscient beginning to gradually grow and reveal himself over time, and how from these very elemental particles of matter, out of this inconscient energy, how consciousness could arise, could develop, how mind could arise out of life, look upon the world, try to understand, comprehend how even a spiritual being, a soul, could arise from the thinking human being and enter into the divine consciousness. So everything begins by blind, brute movements of an ignorant force, by means we slight as small, obscure, or base, a greatness founded upon little things. He has built a world in the unknowing void. Again, he's accepting this kind of argument of death, that this world is developing out of this void of material existence. And the forms he has massed from infinitesimal dust, his marvels are built from insignificant things. And then explaining the defects and limitations of our life. If mind is crippled, life untaught and crude, if brutal masks are there and evil acts, they are incidents of his vast and varied plot. His great and dangerous dramas needed steps. So even this brutality, even this evil, perhaps are needed in the vast drama, this vast play that is unfolding here in this world. He makes with these and all his passion play. And this passion play has interesting meaning because it refers to these kind of medieval plays or dramas that were done to enact the passion of Christ, the sufferings of Christ between the Last Supper and his crucifixion. That is the passion of Christ, and there were these dramas enacted to represent. But it originated then, I guess. But we're also medieval, no?
But the interesting thing I just saw how it's all based on this drama imagery, which is play but not play. And then he has the plot, and then he has the deep theme we talked about before. This is wisdom finding a way, to the Lord. So this is what is not happening. This is not what's going to happen. That's why for me I have to take it into the present because we have all happening right now. That's all this.
So these are incidents in the play. So they're not the deeper significance of the play or the deeper reality of things.
Part of the play, part of the plot.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And it's also very relevant here because we're talking to death. Death is one of the big actors in play.
So then again, she gives the significance of all of this. What is this play all about? Of a transcendent wisdom finding ways to meet her Lord in the shadow and the night. So through all this drama of life, The soul is finding ways in nature to meet its Lord, to meet the divine. Well, it refers to wisdom here, but it's a wisdom, we could say, of the divine finding in the soul, which is embodied here in nature, ways to meet the divine. To meet her Lord in the shadow and the night. We have to learn to find the divine here in these disguises of nature. And above her is the vigil of the stars. This vigil is like a watch, a guard's watch over things, watched by a solitary infinitude, by the oneness of the divine, looks down upon all of this passion play. She embodies in dumb matter the divine, in symbol minds and lives, the absolute. So there is the deeper significance of all of this, that this wisdom of the divine is embodying in matter the divine. And even in our symbol minds and lives.
We could read that line also.
In symbol minds and lives the absolute. You could read it that way. Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, it would just be as if he started a new kind of verb and lives, or, right. So after embodies, she lives the absolute. So it could be taken that way, perhaps, but it's not the straightforward meaning. Right. Oh. Well, it would seem that, but it's coming after. Right. So if you look back at the term that's used, the subject, it's wisdom. A transcendent wisdom, finding ways to meet her Lord in the shadow and the night. We might say it's the wisdom of nature or of the divine Shakti. Okay, I think we need to stop there for today.
Savitri answered the almighty death. Oh, death, I have triumphed over thee within. O death, not for my heart's sweet poignancy, nor for my happy body's bliss alone. I have claimed from thee the living Satyavan, but for his work and mine, our sacred charge. Our lives are God's messengers beneath the stars, to dwell under death's shadow. They have come, tempting God's light to earth for the ignorant race.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.